Hi everyone, I'm Mycah and welcome to the first video on my second channel, which will be dedicated to pretty much whatever I feel like doing, particularly essays and research like the one we're doing today. If you're more interested in comedy, here's my first channel, link below. I will be uploading stuff on there pretty soon. But if you do like this kind of content, please subscribe and turn off notifications, and like and comment if you enjoyed this video. So, let's get started with the ideal Assassin's Creed game according to fans. What gave me the idea of this survey was reading something online about the next game map being even bigger than Valhalla. I immediately thought, is that something the players want? The answer I gave myself was no, considering how much I've seen people complain about the fact that Valhalla is too long, too big, a waste of time, etc. So I decided to make a survey and share it with other AC fans to gather as many opinions as possible to try to create the best possible AC according to the fans. I gathered more than 300 answers, and while I understand that this is a microscopic fraction of AC players, I think it paints a pretty accurate picture of what the general opinion is. And for this, I want to thank the Assassin's Creed subreddit for the incredible response. I couldn't have made it without you guys. The survey included mostly checkboxes, which gave the option to mark more choices at once in case someone doesn't have a specific preference. I also put 2 paragraphs to give everyone the option to express their opinion without bounds. So let's see what the people said. As we go on with the survey, I'll also give my personal opinion, as sometimes it differs from what the majority said. Historical setting. Let's start with the basics. Which historical period do the players like best? The most chosen answer here was something in the middle, and by that I meant like from the 12th century until the 17th. Given that the most beloved games in the series, the Ezio trilogy and Black Flag, are set in this time period, I totally get where this is coming from. I don't particularly disagree with this, as I think that we have barely scratched the surface of the events that happened all over the world in that time frame. The open world. This is somehow a controversial topic and what sparked the initial idea for the video. AC has always in one way or another had an open world, except for the very first games in the series. Even with the existence of beloved massive open world games like Horizon and Red Dead, the majority of the fans think that just a city or alternatively a combination of big cities, towns and open spaces is the best option. I totally agree. Both Horizon and Red Dead have giant maps because they need them, either to fight robot dinosaurs or to fight a goddammit 3-star moose. I find the cities in the latest entries to be lacking in size. In Assassin's Creed, we don't need that. All we want is parkouring, which brings us to the next point. Transportations. I asked the fans how they'd like to move around, and the vast majority wants horses and carriages and parkour, or parkour only. I added some other funky options like cars and air vehicles because I think they can be fun, but maybe only for a mission or two. And of course the ship, but we all know why we want the ship back. Tomorrow you will get your... I totally agree, by the way. Assassin's Creed should focus on parkour. Parkour. Speaking of parkour, I asked how the fans would like it to be. It seems like the parkour in Unity really stood out to fans, as it gives the player more control. Here I added the word challenging as, at least for me personally, had a learning curve. It wasn't as immediate as pressing R1 and X and let the character do as they pleased. Stealth. Stealth to me is a crucial part of Assassin's Creed, and one of my favorite things in general in games. I just love sneaking up on enemies, even in games where the combat is so damn fun like Spider-Man PS4. And it looks like the majority of y'all agree with me, with almost 88% of players saying that stealth is the most important part of AC. Combat. When stealth fails, you gotta fight. And almost 60% of players think that combat should be hard, encouraging stealth, and having melee as a last resort. I think that in the earlier games, combat was not that much fun, and in the newer games, it's kind of fun but way too easy once you get the hang of it. Missions structure. When asked about how the progression of the story should go, almost 60% of the players decided that it's better to unblock memory sequences as you go, and I totally agree. I think that the fact that in newer games you can basically proceed randomly with the story, the leveling system being the only thing that can stop you, kinda messes up the timeline in my mind. But I also like a little bit of freedom, so proceeding in a linear fashion is not for me either, at least in these games. Secondary missions. Having the freedom to explore the open world as you please gives the player the chance to engage in secondary missions, quests, etc. I love them so much. I usually pretty much do them all and procrastinate the main quest, so I was happy to notice that 81% of players love them as much as I do, and 15.8% is open to the possibility of having them. To the remaining 3.3% that chose no, go play Uncharted or something. Character. This question was specifically about the personality of the main character, as I noticed that AC has a tendency to alternate between more fun characters and more serious ones. I personally don't have a preference, and so does the player base. As you can see here, it doesn't really matter as long as it's a well-written one. Gender. The same thing happened with gender. When asked which gender the fans prefer to play as, almost 70% of people answered like that. I agree, however, I really liked switching between the two Fry twins in Syndicate, as I could be Jacob for hand-to-hand combat and Evie for stealth. But that's just me, I guess. And 4% of the answers. Story. Here, I asked if the players had any idea about the story, and y'all came through with many interesting prompts. I'll include every single one of them as well as the entire document in the description down below and in the pinned comment, so you can read them all. One common sentiment I found among players was the fact that they want the game to be political again and not be afraid to make a comment about society, something that I found lacking in the last few games. With a faction dynamic and being set in the past, AC is inherently political. I think games shouldn't be afraid of making statements as books, movies, and TV do. I don't personally have any specific prompt for a possible story, but I do like the idea of it being set in Central America at the time of the Spanish conquest, so I can kill some colonizers. Ancient Rome also is a perfect setting, as long as the city is well replicated, huge and filled with encounters and opportunities. One other thing that would be interesting to explore is to do a reverse Shay Cormac and have a Templar become an assassin during the game. Also, person who said space, I will not elaborate. Please do, you have chaotic energy and I'm here for it. Choices. I asked players if they want their choices to impact the stories, and 35% said no. Honestly, I'd very much like my choices to impact the story. Maybe even have an honor system like in Red Dead, where we get different endings accordingly. Either way, I'd like for my choosing to impact the story. Not that radically, we're steering away from an RPG model anyway, but a little will be fun. Valhalla gave us a bit of that, but in my honest opinion, we're not quite there yet. Modern storyline and character. Contrary to my prediction, turns out that the vast majority of players do want the modern storyline to be present. I would have bet everything on people not wanting to do modern day missions anymore, but with 63% of answers saying yes, 83.8% if we count votes saying yes, but with less focus than the ancient storyline, people aren't tired of running around in hoodies yet. It also seems like everyone wants to play as a new character with as much importance as Desmond and Layla had, hopefully Basim. Personally, I don't care much about the modern storyline, but I don't mind it when it's engaging. Enemies. Historical figures who happen to be Templars have always been a staple of the series, and it looks like players really want that to stick around. Honestly, same. The only thing that I personally don't care much for are fictional Templars. Part of the intrigue of the games is interacting with the past, and if enemies are totally fictional, it makes it less interesting, at least for me. Weapons, armor sets, and customization. I asked players how they'd like their armors, outfits, weapons, and accessories to be obtained, organized, and customized. It looks like the only thing that fans don't want is too much stuff laying around, and they'd rather customize everything. I personally don't care much for customization, I just want to change the color and stuff, but it seems like most people want to craft and add mods and go for a certain build. Leveling system. When asked about the leveling system, people didn't hesitate to express how much they dislike Valhalla's skill tree. Trust me, I'm with you, it's way too big and confusing. I'd much rather have a small skill tree or not at all and just become stronger as I go on. Collectibles / extra. Last but not least, this is for the completionists, collectibles and extra. And here I gotta agree, collectibles are fun only if they come with interesting rewards, missions, and cutscenes associated. Otherwise, if there's too much stuff to collect, I lose interest and I stop looking for them. I'll still remember those fucking feathers in the Ezio games, oh my god, a nightmare. Too long, didn't watch. So that's it. To summarize, here's what the ideal AC game looks like according to fans. An Assassin's Creed set in the Middle Ages with big bustling cities and some open spaces in which we can move around, jumping from roof to roof, riding carriages and horses. The parkour, stealth, and combat all have to be challenging, with the players focusing mostly on the formers and resorting to the latter only if those two fail. There will be a lot of black box assassination missions too. The story will unfold memory sequence after memory sequence, with a lot of secondary missions to unblock as we explore the world and meet new characters, or complete fetch quests / gather collectibles. The main character is a blank slate, but they have to be well written, enjoyable, and with a good character arc. We'll have some choices impacting the game, but not too much, as it's not an RPG and we're just living the memories with a well-defined modern storyline character, very important throughout the game. We'll be fighting historical figures who are also in the Templar Order to keep the conflict between the two factions on the forefront. Players will be able to buy weapons, armor sets, outfits and accessories in shops, chests, and through crafting / as mission rewards, and will be able to completely customize them. The character as well as the build will get generally stronger as the story progresses. Closing thoughts. Thank you so much for joining this survey, I've had a blast doing it. I'll link the answers down below as well as every input I've received in the 2 open questions. Again, if you enjoyed the video, like, comment and subscribe as one does. Give me your thoughts, how would you like the next game to be? Do you have any unpopular opinions? At the end of the day, I know damn well I'll be buying whatever Ubisoft throws at me. Finger crossed it's good.